Okay, perfect. I think we can start 1 minute behind. Yes, to our panelists. Okay, perfect. So I'm delighted to introduce you to today's speakers. One of them is Rash, as she's head of advanced analytics, the lady in purple. Then we have next Robin Sutara. She's the field chief data strategy officer at Databricks. And then we have Paul Davis. Paul Davis is the director of global decision science at Domestic and General. Hi, Paul. And then we have, of course, guiding the conversation is our moderator of today, Naz Gadur-Pur. She's Data Delivery Program Manager at NTT DATA. So now I hand over to you, Naz.
Thank you. Welcome, everyone. I think you agree with me that today every company is feeling the pressure, rising customer demands, regulations, volatility, and more frequent planning cycles. Today's session is not just about forecasting, it's going beyond traditional planning models and embracing AI insights. AI enables insights. In a world where uncertainty is constant, the businesses have a unique need and opportunity to turn data to meaningful informations, decisions, and actions, informed actions. That's why we're here today, to hear from people who are not just talking about AI, they're talking about how they delivered it in a complex world at pace. We'll explore with Paul, Robin, and Raj real challenges, breakthroughs, and accelerators that change the game of operations, customer service, and growth. So let's dive in. Paul, I've got the first question for you. When did your organization realize that traditional planning models were no longer enough? Was it a tipping point?
So I'd say for us, we realized about 10 years ago, a long time ago, that the traditional ways of planning, forecasting, Excel, effectively, were already in the past then. And we did a lot in some key areas such as pricing, where we would forecast much more accurately our sales, our claims, etc., so we could give much better prices to our customers. And then gradually, as you get success there, we found that there was a sort of tipping point about 2 or 3 years ago. We brought the data team together at D&G, so all the different types of people who are using data, building models, brought them all under one hood. And that was the real tipping point, from going from we can be really good with AI and data for forecasting in certain areas to AI and data should be driving our business and not just our forecasting. So yeah, overall I would say there was no direct tipping point, but it almost became, as we got so much better in certain areas, it kind of became like a wave where, everything should become like that now. So yeah, that's...
Organically grow, so the data and insights you got from that, they pushed you to...
Yeah, absolutely. So it'd be, someone in pricing is saying, yeah, this is great, it's working for us. And then what we would see is, the other people in marketing, maybe in claims, maybe in our service teams, maybe this could work for us as well. And before you know it, you kind of have to create that data team and bring it together so that you can service all these different teams with AI-enabled forecasting and predictive analytics.
Okay, thank you. Great. Now, Raj, what does AI-enabled forecasting mean in your context? Is it predictive modeling, scenario planning, real-time decisions, or something else?
Yeah, so we do a whole host of forecasting, all the way from market movements down to planning how many agents we need to speak to our customers on a daily basis. And I think, as Paul mentioned, we sort of use advanced ML methods, but where AI is coming in, and this is the beauty, is right now we are using triaging. So essentially, where did the forecast go wrong, which might be, for example, my prices have gone down, but customers are still calling in to negotiate, right? Why do I still need to keep so many agents on? It turns out that, there's a cost of living crisis. So people are calling in, right? So there's triaging that's coming in from adding in, and now what we're trying to advance to is contextual engineering, where basically you use AI to add context to your forecast, which means you're already adapting to scenarios as they come along. So yeah, it's
Make it more specific with that context. Yeah. We lost you a bit. Okay.
Sorry about that. Yeah, so basically, yeah, essentially using AI to add context to numbers, because initially in forecasting you are always limited by numerical data. And what AI does is now start to convert this huge data source, which is text data, etc., images, all these sorts of news, into numbers and facts that you can actually use. Yeah.
Thank you. Enrich that. Thank you. So obviously with AI, we have you today. I'm sure you've seen lots of platforms and you've seen tools. So, Robin, if you help us to understand how have platforms like Databricks help accelerate forecasting capabilities, especially across fragmented data ecosystems.
Can everybody hear me? Oh, I can hear me. Yeah, so you can all hear me. I think from our perspective, I mean, that's the whole reason that Databricks was created, right? Was really to help break down these silos and figure out how do we take things like unstructured data, like call logs, like integrate that into our internal processes. I think that the focus that has been the last couple of years over AI, and now how do you integrate that or generative AI into these processes to sort of drive those things forward, has really made a difference in the ecosystem. I think, how many here showed up and saw a booth that you had never heard of that company? I know I did. I walked in the door and I had no idea. We were just having this conversation. Like, I have no idea how many of these how many of these organizations are now playing in this space to help break down these silos and these gaps. Because the power is the data. The power is having quality data and being able to aggregate in a way that allows you to generate these insights, be reactive, be proactive, and predictive off of that. And I'm sure all of you will attend at least one session that has agentic in the title if you haven't already. And so as you think about what that looks like, the platform is going to become even more critical in being able to bridge the gap and be able to do that in a governed, sort of traceable, explainable way so that you can meet the governance requirements that are going to be required around it. So if you haven't seen the Databricks booth, definitely go check it out. I think it's one of the better ones. But I do think we will continue to see this drive across the ecosystem around technology simplification to be able to drive these outcomes and the business value that we're looking for.
Exactly. I think that's what I was thinking, is the tools and the platforms that are there to make use of it to just get to the better decisions, add more context, the quality of your data. So completely agree with that. Thank you. And I think following on that, in terms of what kind of data we fit into the platform or accelerator that we're using, Raj, what challenges did you face when you used AI forecasting in terms of data quality, model drift, or even a stakeholder buying?
Yeah, I think for us, funnily enough, I think the last one is most critical because it's a brave new world. You need to make sure that you're getting in the subject matter experts who actually know, what all this data should actually mean and that the insights you're deriving are actually meaningful. So we make sure that we even have, for example, I've been teaching some of my stakeholders prompt engineering, frankly speaking, because they will most probably tell you what they want to look for in the data. So I think that's sort of the main key. I think in terms of data drift, that's standard for every forecasting model. But this is where you've got ML flow, etc., and all. You have triggers, thresholds. You can now automate that process, which is great because now you don't need an analyst who's sitting there looking and saying, "Oh, my errors are drifting. My data is drifting." Right? You've got an automatic threshold trigger done. It's almost a post-fact problem now. It's like, oh, it triggered. Why? Is there something bigger? Yeah.
On that. Any tips on data quality for organizations for forecasting?
Well, you can spell a word in many, many, many different ways. I think this is where, when you write the prompt, getting in guardrails, etc., and all is quite important. Like for example. And especially in insurance and claims, as Paul will say, TPI. Insurance guys love abbreviations. And so you've got to make sure there are glossaries, data dictionaries, again, very specific context to your domain and your expertise. So that's something where it's worth the effort to work on in the beginning to make sure that these models are actually useful.
Thank you. Thanks. And Paul, in your experience, in what ways has AI improved customer service or operation efficiency in your business?
Yeah, so I mean, I think AI is having an impact, especially in insurance companies, across basically every area of the customer journey, from whether it's acquiring new customers to serving customers on the claims end. So I'll kind of stick on that end because I think for D&G in particular, we're very keen that service is the number one thing that we are about. So for us, AI, and I'll link it into forecasting as well, but really the best thing for us to do, for anyone, and for if you don't know, we fix washing machines and stuff, we're a warranty provider. So effectively the best thing for us to do is to fix your washing machine as quickly as possible. So what we've started to do now is link in AI with a smart fix solution. You can come to our website, you can tell it what's wrong with your washing machine, and we'll try and help you directly then. And the AI will come back with that. That's great for us in forecasting. It's cheaper. We don't have to send an engineer here. But it's also great for you for quicker analysis. And then on top of that, in the forecasting sort of space, now you're telling me what's wrong with your appliance, whether it's through chat or through call. I can then use the AI to tell me that stuff in advance. And what we're doing at D&G now is things like predicting whether your washing machine is going to need a part, because I don't know what breaks with washing machines, not that close to the engineer. But effectively, what would happen in a typical journey for our customers would be, okay, you tell us it's broken, we send you an engineer, they have a look at it and they go, we need this part, sorry, I'll come back next week. And before you know it, it's been 2 weeks, 3 visits, and you're like, I just want to wash my clothes. With this now, you've told us what's wrong, we've put it through AI models, we've used AI to get the data, we've used models to predict what's wrong, we've told the engineer we're going to need this part, and now the person's coming to you with the part ready, fixing your washing machine straight away in one hit. So it takes away time, it takes away your effort of, I have to work from home today because this guy's coming. And we're already seeing a vast improvement in our customer scores and NPS scores and things, just because we're able to use the AI to effectively forecast what you're going to need and make sure it's there for you when you want it. So yeah, I think that's one example in our core area of, that's what we're all about, fixing washing machines and other appliances. And it's been really useful in driving that upward trend in sort of our service levels.
The efficiency. I think we all have experienced that washing machine scenario for a week and 2 weeks later come back. Thank you. Thanks. Robin, what specific accelerators, specifically I would say kind of data strategy area, can help to get value faster?
Yeah, I mean, we can talk about the technology till we're blue in the face.
Yes.
In my experience, it's typically the people in the process, right? How do you change so that your field responders to the washing machine actually aren't spending that level of effort either. I mean, inside of Databricks, for example, I still have sellers that will say, no, the model isn't accurate when it comes to my sales forecast, I promise. Right? And so it just becomes this cyclic where you're running 2 forecasting motions internally on what the AI says and what the sellers say they're going to do. And I was just talking to one of my coworkers the other day who was like, do you realize I vibe coded an app that saw all of this bloat inside the system where I can tell somebody sandbagging their forecast, right? And so it's just super fascinating, I think, what we're able to do these days and being able to do it. But when I see what it actually drives down to is, how do you change your culture of your organization? How do you empower people to realize that it's better for them to use these capabilities and abilities that are being built into the tools and the platforms? They're more accurate. They can help you drive the business in a better, more effective way. And you can change your operational processes to actually give you time to go have more calls and not actually spend time on the back office reporting up to our CRO what you think you're going to make. Then he's going to tell you you're sandbagging anyway, because we now have a vibe-coded app that's going to tell him that. So I think it really is starting to drive for most organizations to rethink how do we think about enabling the people to realize sort of the power of the AI capabilities that were built into the ecosystem? And then how do we revisit internal processes that we've created to sort of get in our own way? All too often, I talk to boards and CEOs where they're like, yes, we took this 97-step process and we put it into AI. It's still 97 steps. And it's like, okay, did that are you really getting the economy of scale that the technical capabilities now bring? Probably not. And so when we saw the cloud and everybody was moving on-prem to the cloud, a lot of us just brought technical debt from on-prem, right, to the cloud. Then we were like, oh, now we've moved CapEx to OpEx, and it's getting really, really expensive to do that. So how do we think about it? That, I think, is what we're seeing now with this type of forecasting capability is how do we take these legacy processes and how do we actually modernize them? Not just migrate them into a different tool or capability, but how do we actually modernize? And that, I think, requires a holistic strategy, considering not just the technology and the platform, but how are you going to bring the people and process along? This is a horrible mic, by the way.
I think I'll have a follow-up question on that one, but Raj, how do you approach training and upscaling for both technical and non-technical stuff in context of AI adoption?
I mean, Robin hit the nail on the head, right?
Yes.
It's all about culture and training people. I think it's about two things. One is, I remember we had our Gen AI team just said we've released a use case, and I remember her whole company thing was flooded with, oh my God, is it going to replace my job, right? Which was totally not the case. So I think we need to take the time sometimes and almost explain what it's doing in a very, very, very basic level. Like, this is what the code, this is what AI is trying to do. This is how it helps you. Look, here's a prompt. This is what you write. We actually try to run 1 or 2 sessions sometimes with stakeholders where like have a play, see how your thing. So I think when they actually start having a play with it, and then going on to training courses, we had certain skills at scales and other courses, etc., from Databricks itself. So it was like getting people comfortable with the platform, and then when they play around and they actually see what they're doing, then they have more faith in what you're doing, and like, oh yeah, you're actually enabling me to do my job better. You're not just coming here to replace me. You're here to get rid of all the drudge work which I was doing, So rather than me having to worry about how do I make this graph look red or whatever it is, I'll just tell it to an app. It'll do it for me, and I can now concentrate on getting better relationships with my suppliers or negotiating a contract better or things like that, So I definitely think.
So just to see the value.
Yeah, I think people need to and I think they need to see it first, almost, rather than, I think what we do many times, we're like, everybody needs to upskill in AI, do a course in Python, and everybody's like, why am I doing this, right? I'm spending hours with code I don't like. Whereas if you sort of turn the process on its head, and you're like, try this very simple thing, and see the value it brings, I think you'll get more buy-in.
I think that is a super interesting point, just because I think so many organizations a year ago said enable everybody on AI. And what did that really mean? As we talked about large language models, we talked about prompt engineering, everybody thought there was going to be this big displacement. Like we took a technology perspective when we said we're going to enable the entire organization. I think the last year I've seen a lot of organizations repivot and think about that to say, okay, how do we now actually start to think about the personas within our organization, and how do we do this AI translation? Like what does it mean for a field tech repair engine, I have no idea about dishwasher or washing machine repair, but versus your HR partner in the back office. Like they both need to be AI enabled, but it's very different in how you present it. So why are we giving them all a class on llama versus, right? It just doesn't make sense. And so I think for many, many organizations, at least in my conversations over the last 12 months, it has been very much about what does AI enablement look like by persona based on what we expect you to do with AI.
Exactly, thank you. Paul, so I think just following on the training and upscaling people, what are some common misconceptions about AI-enabled forecasting that you encounter?
Yeah, so I think that, the first one is it's going to take everyone's job. It's not. If anything, businesses, want people to be more efficient and they want to make more money. They're not they're not going, oh, we've made enough money, we'll just get rid of all the people now. So that's definitely one. I think the other one is, like, for me, I see a lot of, I see it almost split between people who have this misconception that it's just a fad and it can't do anything for you, and the other side, which is, I don't need to do my job anymore, I'll just stick it in that AI and it will do it. And one of the things that we're trying to do is sort of say, you know, you're not building a machine as such, you're sort of building a suit. You're making people more efficient, so if they can know these technologies, use these technologies, they will be better. And that's the two misconceptions. I see it a lot where it's one or the other. So yeah, I think really for most businesses, it's now about bringing them two together into, look what you can do with this, look how it makes you more efficient, and use it in the right context, as opposed to either absolutely not, let me boot Excel up, I'll show you how to do a forecast, or, you know, here's my data, forecast the next 5 years, click button, here you go. So yeah, I think it's about, you know, the knowledge and the AI together that gives us the real best outcomes. So yeah, I think that, and then I guess like one final thing, I guess in our organization, we're definitely also thinking about like just letting it go wild, right? We do want humans in the loop when we're looking at stuff. We use some AI for like writing letters back to customers, and it might say, oh, we're sorry we did that, we're just going to refund you. And if it decides it's going to say £20,000 instead of £20, that might be a bit of a problem. So there is I think some misconceptions in some teams that it will definitely be right all of the time. And well, it's not all of the time. And so we're doing things in the tech world, so we're trying to work out how can we check that. But realistically, the best way we're finding at the moment is have some human in the loop within the technology.
Human intervention till we trust the model, right?
Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks. Okay. Now, what advice would you give to organizations just starting their journey towards AI-enabled forecasting and planning? And I would love to hear each one of you, your advice. So we'll start with Paul.
Yeah, I mean, I'd love to just say, don't ask for permission, ask for forgiveness, and just go for it. But that's probably the best advice for long-term career prospects. So I'd say my advice would be, one is test and learn. Like, you can get these things up and running pretty quickly, test them in the market, test them with small amounts of your teams. Like when I mentioned the claims letter, like we just tested like 4 or 5 people about how it would make them better, and we could speak to them directly about what they were using it, how they were using it, and then you can scale later. And the other thing we do a lot at D&G is just hackathons, right? Let's get the smart people in a room for a couple of days. Let's have a problem that we want to solve. We can solve it with AI. Let's go and prove the output. And then realistically, there's no real barriers then, because you've already shown it's going to work. So yeah, I would say move fast and do a lot of testing, a lot of hackathons.
Thank you. Robbie?
I would say be people-centric, right? I mean, we all sort of are going through this journey, whether it's changing how people forecast today versus to how we aspirationally want to be. I think just keeping people not in the loop, but people-centric in the things that you're trying to roll out for the organization, and make sure that you're taking them along in the journey so that they understand the why and the benefit and the value proposition it has for them.
Yeah, I think the main thing is when you're starting out, you need to have a really good use case, because everything hinges on that, you know, being able to provide value. I mean, the cool factor helps, obviously, you know, when you sort of say things like I deployed things and it magically retrained the model, everybody's impressed. But ultimately, did you just cost me in like spinning up clusters for no good reason, or did you actually give me a, you know, competitive advantage? So I think when you're starting off, you make sure that you align your technology to your use case, because people think I need to go for the latest and greatest, you know, and it need not be the case. Like sometimes, you know what, linear regression is good enough to start with, because it'll solve your problem, it'll do it fast, it's understandable, it's explainable, and like, you know, you can deploy it fast and find mistakes easily, right? So I would say start simple and make sure you push something out, learn, and then iterate and advance.
Iteration.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, that's a very good advice. I think each one of you gave really good points. People-centric, people that need to come on the journey. And I can relate with what you said about the use case, because sometimes we have the tech and we're playing with it, but if you don't have the right use case, you don't show the value to the organization, bring people on journey. That's great, thank you. Now, just let's say 2 years from now, this forecasting enabled is in your organization. in few words, what that looks like. So, you want to go first?
Yeah, but for us, I think it just looks like a great service journey for our customers. So kind of like when we're saying use cases, whatever technology we put in, we're just looking for the best for the customers. So yeah, I think for us, it's, using AI to understand our customers, understand what they need, and get it to them as quickly as possible.
Thank you. Robin?
Yeah, I think from a platform perspective, it's, how do we deliver on the pace of innovation based on what organizations need the platform to be able to do? And then how do we make sure salespeople aren't sandbagging their forecast?
I think it's about richness in the forecast. I think sometimes forecasts are very one-dimensional, and then you've got a bunch of 6 lines, and everybody's arguing about which line is. It's about everybody. I think in the future, it's about everybody sort of using a lot of different methods, and enabling decision makers. Essentially, there is a richness of information we can now pass on. Rather than just being limited to some point forecast or prediction, so that you can make a decision in a really data-driven manner.
Thank you. Thank you all. I think we have a few minutes to take any questions from audience, if there are any.
We answered everything.
We just solved forecasting for every organization.
Forecasting, well done.
That's going on my performance review for this year.
So, thank you all for listening, being with us, and thank you, Paul, Robin, Raj, for sharing your experience. Thank you, and thanks for
guys.
Women in Data to give us the platform.